Okay, I'm going to kind of show you how to go about reading a graphing diagram for lace and how I'm doing it for the Valentine's hat here. And what we're after is you'll see these loops, okay? These are my chains. Alright, then you'll see these holes here, okay? Alright, what you're seeing is you'll see a CH in a direction, and that's because you're taking up 2 stitches to do the chain. Okay, when we're done with this heart, I'm going to show you how to weave all that together to make a heart. Okay, so what you're seeing here is triangles, okay, and you're seeing them lean towards a certain direction, and then you'll see these holes, okay. These circles actually mean yarn over, and I'm E-wrapping for yarn over, and these mean decrease, okay. So you're working over a total of 4 stitches to do this, okay, and what that's doing is creating this hole you see here, right there. That's what you're doing, you're creating that hole. And so all these places that you see the 2 circles will be a hole, and they'll do a lace heart shape, okay. Now these little dots in here and the outlining I've done means you're going to knit those stitches, okay, and everything else is going to be a purl, okay. And so what I've done is I've diagrammed off everything, and this makes it easier, and I've put, like, there's consistently 4 purls on either side of the heart, okay. So on the design there's consistently 4 purls after my cable braid that I'm doing, okay, and so I put a marker there. Those are going to be purls no matter what, okay, and then I put a marker between the first 10 pegs, and the first one is usually a purl on this end, and then these are going to be your 9 stitches you're going to be working across on the cable. And then I go over to my middle, and I've marked off my middle zone so I know where the middle point of my heart is, because that's going to be the same point that's up here too. So that's going to tell you where the middle of this section is, and so I marked that there on the outer edges of those 4 middle pegs. And then I went over and I marked my next 4 that are always going to be purled, and then I marked off my next 10. Okay, so basically half this loom is taking up this braided cable on both sides of the heart and this. And the reason I'm choosing to do the faux braiding is I don't have to worry about, like, how am I going to cable it. It's just going to weave together when I'm done. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to read my diagram here so that this makes it a little easier. Okay, so my first one, and this will be written out as well, will be a purl. Okay, the next 9 pegs are my cable crossings, and I'm knitting those. Okay, there's my next 9 pegs. Now how I'm doing this is I'm not drawing out my cabling. I tell you which row and what kind of cabling you're going to do on the ends over here and over here, okay? And so that helps me keep up. But I know that that's 9 stitches on either side of my 4 over here, okay? But I've written over here when I'm supposed to do and what cable crossing over here. So at this point, my last row was this one here. And you'll see I did my purl 4, and then I purl 4 again, and then I knit it all the way over, and then purled all the way over and did an actual cable crossing. Okay, so I'm on this row here, and this is where I'm going to show you what I'm up to. Okay, so I've done my 9 and I'm not doing any cable crossing. You'll see that over here. So it's just a regular row on my cabling. Now what it's saying is I need to go ahead and purl my 4, because these are the 4 stitches that are always going to be purled. And then I go and I look at what my next row is, and I'm here, okay, and then it says I need to purl 4 more. All right, so we're going to purl 4 more. And go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm here, and then it says to chain, and that's over the next 2 stitches. Okay, so I'm going to, and it'll be written out how many chains you do to make a loop. So I do 13. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, I'm doing 13. Then I take that stitch off and put it onto the next peg. I toss the bottom loop over. Okay, and then I shove that chain down. Then I need to go and find my first stitch, and it's going to be sticking up actually. See, it's right there. So it's going to be sticking up out at you. You're going to pick that up, put it on. Okay, so we've just finished a chain, as you can see here. So there's my chain. Now it says that I just need to knit 1. There's a little dot there, if that makes any sense. So you'll see there is the dot. So we're going to just knit 1. Okay, so we're knitting 1. Now we've knitted that 1, and what it says to do now is to decrease to the left. And when I write it out on the pattern, I'll tell you, I give you an arrow to which direction you're decreasing. I'll write it out, and I'll also provide the diagram. Okay, so we're going to skip. So what that decrease means is you're going to skip that first peg and pick up the second stitch. Okay, and you're going to move it over. Okay, and that's what that means. Alright, so you're going to skip that first stitch, pick up that second stitch, and move it to the left. Then I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together. Okay, and then I know the next one is yarn over, and for my yarn over I'm just going to do an E-wrap. That'll open up the hole some more. Okay, so what we've just done is we've done our decrease. There's our yarn over, and we need to do another yarn over, but in order to do that we need to decrease to the right. Okay, so what that means is, we'll unwrap that yarn over. You're going to need to move this stitch over. You're going to move that over to the next peg. I'm going to yarn over twice. See, there's my E-wrap, E-wrap. And then I'm going to knit those 2 together. Okay. So that's what those circles mean. You're going to have to yarn over, but in order to do that, you've got to move that stitch in either direction. And so those little triangles on either side tell you which direction you're moving it to. So that yarn over says we're moving that decrease over to the left, and that yarn over says we're moving that decrease over to the right. Okay, so in order to continue this, it says we need to do that again in the next 4 stitches. So we're going to pick up the next, we're going to skip that first stitch, pick up the next stitch, move it over as your decrease, knit the 2 together, and then I pick up the next available stitch, move it to the right, yarn over, and knit the 2 together. Okay, and I'm going to do that again. So I've already done it twice, so there's my 1 and there's my 2, and I need to do it 2 more times. So I'm going to do it 2 more times. So I'll move that over to there. And knit. Move that one over to there. E-wrap, 2 yarn over, or the yarn over E-wrap. Knit those 2 together, and I need to do this 1 more time to complete my lacing for my heart. And then move that next stitch over, yarn over with an E-wrap, and toss both those loops, toss both those loops over. Okay, yarn over, there we go, and toss both those loops over. There we go. Okay, so I know I've just done that 4 times, and now I know I need to knit 1, because on my pattern, see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and see there's a dot. We know we need to knit 1, and then we need to do the chain sequence again. Okay, so knitted 1, make sure I did that right. Yeah, knitted 1. Okay, so the next 2 stitches are your chain, so you're going to chain 13. So there's 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If it gets in your way, just shove it back there. 9, 10, 11, 12. One more is 13. You're going to take that stitch, lift it up. I like to stretch it out, move it over to the next peg, toss the bottom loop over. Okay, then I'm going to move that chain I just made down in out of the way so that I can easily see the stitch I need to pull up, which it's lifted quite obviously up right there. You'll see it. You can put it back on. Oops. Need to put it over 1 peg. There. Here we go. That one. Okay. Now you're going to purl your 4 on the other side. And then you're going to purl your always purled pegs. You'll see that I have that stitch marker. Then we've hit our last 10, and so we don't have to cable or do anything, so we're just going to knit 9. And then purl that last one. That completes your heart section, which is the only place where I show the diagram, and you can see where our heart is showing up. Okay. And so you'll have received the link to on your pattern to how to do the braid on the hat so that it's nice and pretty and everything. And there will be another diagram for the heart down here. Okay. And I need to make a couple of adjustments to it. While sometimes it works on here, once you knit it up, it doesn't work so well. I'm going to have to take these 2 pearls off and then add a row, just a plain row at the top so that you can distinctively see the heart better. But you're going to have a diagram that you're following like that for the heart over a 10 stitch section, because this is the 110 peg 1/4 inch gauge loom. That made it easier to just go it over a 10 peg section. So you're going to be following a diagram like that where you'll purl however many over from your first and last stitch. So that's going to show up in there. That's the base here. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. That was the one part I wanted to explain, was how this worked. So then I'm just going to knit my way around. And so since I just did this one, I know that I'm going to move up, and it's not going to be anything special on my 9 because I have 2 more rows before I'm actually doing the cable cross. But I know on that next row I need to do my extra wraps so that my crossing's a lot easier, and that gets shown in the braided cable crossing. And while maybe it might have been done on the wider gauge and the fatter pegs, it works exactly the same on the fine gauge. Doesn't change any. Okay, so the row before is where you'll do the double wrap, but we can do a regular row, so we know that we're going to be doing straight up 9. So you're going to go over there and you're going to see that you're going to be doing a knit row. So you're not doing anything fancy because you see all the dots, and you're going to be doing purl 2 and then start your knit, and then it's a purl 2 and then your standard 4. So that's what all that's going to tell you. So that gives you a general idea. And I will tell you to make note when you get to this middle one here, this middle chain, look at your pattern, because it's not going to be 13. I'm going to make it 20. So up here on this very middle one, I'll make sure I put a note into the actual diagram here if you're going to follow it. Some people follow diagrams easier. I'll put it in the diagram that it is 20. And the reason it's going to be 20 is you're going to be folding it and then actually chaining in those last 2 and connecting it down later on. So go ahead, and those are some tips on how to go about making this Valentine's Day hat with all the pretty hearts and everything. And I'm using a size 3 yarn, a DK weight yarn, and it's in a Lions brand. I'll make sure that I add what exactly yarn I'm using, because it is working up quite nicely with the pink and everything. So go ahead and pause the video and knit up your hat, and then we'll go back and I'll show you how to do the beautiful faux cabling around your lace heart to make it easier to see how to do that. So go ahead and work up your hat, and then I'll show you how to kind of finish everything up. Okay, I have completed my charts and all my rows, and you can see there's the heart and everything. And so now I'm ready to actually finish off the top of the hat. And so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to decrease every other peg so that I'm down to half the number of pegs I've got, which means when I'm done with this, every other peg should be empty. Okay, so I'm going to E-wrap the first peg, take and put that stitch on the next peg, toss the bottom loop over. Then I'm going to E-wrap the next peg, move it over to the next, toss the bottom loop over. And you're going to do this all the way around. So go ahead and pause the video and get your stitches halved from 110 so that every other peg should be empty. Go ahead and pause the video and get that much done, and then we'll go from there. Okay, at this point you'll have a stitch on every other peg, as you can see, all the way around. Now what you're going to do is you're going to knit all the stitches, all the pegs with stitches. Okay, so you're just going to go in and you're going to knit them all the way around. Okay, now we're going to go in and decrease again, and we're going to half our pegs again. So you're going to E-wrap that first stitch, move it over to the next peg with the next stitch, and toss over. E-wrap the next peg with the next stitch, move it over to the next peg with the next stitch on it, toss bottom loop over. And you're going to do this all the way around. You're going to end up halving your stitches again. Okay, and what this means is every 3 pegs will be empty and there will be a stitch. Okay, and when you finish that, go ahead and knit it like we did our second row after we did our first decrease, and then go ahead and draw a string cast off at that point. And then the next thing I'll do is show you how to weave in the heart, and we're almost done. Here is our hat. Now we need to go in and weave these in, and I'm going to twist this one on the right side at the very bottom, and I'm going to pull this one through. Okay, now I'm going to flip it upside down. I'm going to take the next loop and we'll pull it through. Take the next loop, pull it through. Take the next one, pull it through. Take the next one, pull it through. Take the next one, pull it through. And the next one, pull it through. And the next one, pull it through. And the next one, pull it through. The next one, and you're just going all the way around. And there's our middle one. We're just going to pull that last one through like that. Okay, that's long enough. Alright, and you can see that it framed your heart. Now you're going to pick up that other stitch over here. You're going to pick up that other stitch over here that was at the bottom that you twisted, and then you're going to start pulling through on it. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side and pull through all the way around so that you have the heart framed. Okay, and pull that last really long one through. I like to stretch it out afterwards. And then what I'm going to do is take and tack this down. There's my center point. I'm going to send it through that hole in the center point, and I'm going to tack it down on the inside. There you go. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to tack it down in here. And that's as simple as taking your scrap taking a scrap piece of yarn, sending that through there. It's as simple as taking a scrap piece of yarn and sending it through a little stitch, the crochet hook through there, and then just pull it through. And tie it up. And then I'm going to cut that real short. Okay. And then when you turn it back around, you can kind of stretch it out some. And there you have it. Your heart is prettily framed by that chain that we made. Nice. Huh. And then you have that beautiful cabling on the side. And so that's pretty much it. You're going to weave in your ends, and then you're done. That is your Valentine lace heart cabled hat. Now, if you want it longer, this one's going to fit very springtime-ish. It's not going to go real low on the head. It's a beanie. But if you want it longer, simply do more rows up here. You can do 10 or 12 rows up here, and that'll make it automatically longer if you want it to sit lower on the head. Okay. But otherwise, that is it. That's how you do it.